You're in your backyard with a rake in your hands when suddenly you stumble upon suspicious yellow slime right under a heap of leaves. You touch it and give it a sniff. Ew, it's stuck to your fingers and now they stink. It feels a bit like the Play-Doh you used to have fun with. Little do you know that you've just discovered one of the most intelligent organisms that can design railway systems better than any human or AI can. This brainless slime mold may seem primitive, but don't let yourself be tricked by its appearance. There are around 900 species that can be found on every continent, even Antarctica. Despite being brainless, it can do tasks better than some engineers, and it works for free. It can even do better than humans in certain areas. Yeah, we've got bigger and more complex brains, but we can get overwhelmed with thoughts and become frustrated, while the mold can't. Slime molds are smart, but they can't go to the supermarket to find food, so they have to send out tendrils in multiple directions to locate the best food source. This is why it can perform sophisticated jobs thanks to its unusual feeding behavior, much like an ant colony. Slime molds don't have smartphones to communicate with each other, so they have to find creative ways to tell one another what's going on. When this yellow goo detects food, it sends chemical messages to its fellow slime molds. And when one of them gets the news, it sends tendrils towards the food sources. It's just like what we humans do when we find a fantastic restaurant and recommend it to our friends. When slimes encounter something they don't like, such as sunlight, they retract, similar to vampires. The only difference is that slime molds are real and exist in our world. Molds can sometimes grow up to 322 square feet. That's bigger than some living rooms. Despite their impressive size, they're monocellular, meaning they consist of only one cell. They have a similar structure to plants, but are classified in a different category, called protists. Biologists place there various creatures for which they still can't find a good explanation. Scientists have collected some slime mold to study its movements. They were amazed when they discovered that the mold can make choices that were better than the ones computers made. To figure out how this yellow goo works, let's travel back in time to the year 2000 in Japan. Researchers put some slime mold in a specially designed maze with only 4 possible paths, each of them having 2 food sources at the ends. The hungry mold easily spread throughout the maze, searching for the best route. After what seemed like forever, it had found the optimal path. The slime going into the dead end slowly receded, which took 4 hours. And only the slime that had picked the correct path remained and continued to grow. What makes this slime mold truly extraordinary is its intelligence. It avoids taking the same path twice. The whole process took around 8 hours. In the future, we will probably even have slime mold GPS. This is called a combination optimization problem, representing many potential solutions to the given situation. There are numerous possible solutions for the problem. But finding the best one can be a highly demanding task for humans or AI, but not for slime mold. Still, in Japan, in Tokyo, the local authorities wanted to improve railway systems. Nowadays, people normally look for solutions using modern technologies. But in this case, they turn to slime mold that's been around for about 2 billion years. Yep, slime mold is older than most plants. Some of the first species got out of the ocean when evolution first began. So, this is how the experiment went. Scientists placed a portion of delicious oatmeal in 36 surrounding towns connected by the railway. In the center of Tokyo, they released a hungry, wriggling piece of slime mold. In no time, the slime started to work its magic. At first, it spread randomly, but when it came across the delicious food, it began to create a path toward it. Scientists were astonished at how closely the path the mold created resembled the existing railway. I mean, why spend so much time and brainpower on design when mold can do it in a day? If slime building railways sounds too far-fetched, here's another possible application of this goo. When we order something online, it's frustrating when the parcel is traveling slowly. We want it to arrive at our doorstep as soon as possible. Slime mold can help us with that by finding the best route to our home. It can also help you on your way to work. Imagine you're late for work or stuck in traffic and want to find the best route. Navigators aren't always as precise as we want them to be. But slime mold can come to the rescue and find the optimal route to take. It all might sound improbable to you, but here are some facts. Slime mold processes information about 10 minutes faster than the computer. Now imagine a mold without a brain overpowering advanced technology. The slime can consistently outperform the computer no matter how hard we make the task. However, setting up the correct conditions for the mold can be time-consuming. So researchers found a way to replicate the slime's behavior using a computer. Humans 1, mold 0. Phew, we're still the most intelligent beings on this planet. So there was research in 2018 that made it possible to incorporate this yellow goo into a computer chip, and it should work similarly to the slime. But there is a little problem with this idea. Slime mold has a lifespan and can't be put inside any kind of technology. Here's why scientists are planning to put nanotechnology inside of the mold in order to incorporate it into a computer successfully. We will have to wait a few more years to find out if it works. This new technology has the potential to solve many problems, like controlling robots, graph optimization, and many more. So don't be surprised if, in the future, your smart device contains some mold. Just make sure to keep it away from your food. Still, no matter how smart slime mold is, you don't want to have it as someone living rent-free in your apartment. So yeah, go check your air conditioner because this goo might just make itself at home inside it. Slime mold has many nice applications, but this is not the first time we humans have turned to nature for help. Our journey into nature's treasures takes us to the African farmlands, where elephants live and destroy farmers' crops. To stop this chaos, farmers came up with an innovative solution. They started using bees. It may sound weird, but African elephants are afraid of tiny bees. However, having hives in random places around the farm is not an easy task. An insect researcher from Hawaii has developed a synthetic liquid that mimics bee pheromones. Farmers can spray this solution around the farm to deter elephants. It's like mosquito repellent, but designed for much larger creatures. In the realm of science and invention, nature has always been our most intriguing mentor. Take Velcro, for instance. The inspiration for these handy straps came from an unlikely source, a thorn bush. Next time you fasten your shoes, thank nature for this brilliant idea. When you're traveling by airplane, you can thank birds and whales for the enjoyable ride without too many bumps. We copied the structure of the whale's tail and bird's feathers to design the airplane. And here's where it gets fascinating. Scientists are now diving into the complexity of shark skin. Its structure is unlike any other, and it doesn't allow barnacles to grow on it. This could be the key to a future where we combat conditions without relying on chemicals.
This creature first appeared on our planet around 1 billion years ago. It thrives in damp environments and can survive pretty much anywhere. It might be in your basement as we speak. I think you've already guessed, I'm talking about mold here. It's a type of fungus that spreads through tiny particles moving through the air. These spores are like the seeds of a plant, although they're much smaller. Sometimes they cling onto clothes or animal fur and travel long distances unnoticed. They can survive even in some unfriendly environments and start growing when they land somewhere with enough water, food, and oxygen. Mold comes in all colors of the rainbow, and each color stands for a certain type of mold. You can usually find red or orange mold outdoors. The pink variety likes to reside in bathrooms on shampoo and soap residues. Black and green mold are the types you're most likely to meet in your house. Unlike plants that use photosynthesis, mold grows on materials it can digest. Even one tiny mold spore is powerful enough to harm several people. But there are over 100,000 different types of mold in the world, and not all of them are dangerous to you. Ugh, you just noticed something green on your sandwich, but only a small part of it is infected, so maybe you can just cut it off. Nope, it won't work out. The tiny greenish spots you see are on the surface, and you can spot them with the naked eye. But there's more hiding inside the bread. But if it was 1 second too late and you've bitten into the bright green patch of mold, don't Don't rush to the bathroom to scrub your tongue with antibacterial soap. You've probably eaten mold before without even knowing about it. It easily grows on soft, porous foods like bread, fruit, and vegetables. So, consuming just a bit of it is okay, as long as you have a strong immune system. You'll digest it like any normal food. If you feel sick after consuming it, that's most likely because mold tastes weird, and not because there's some vicious substance spreading through your body. So, the best you can do if you spot mold on your bread is not to risk your health and throw away the entire loaf. Mold likes to settle in cooked leftovers like meat, poultry, casseroles, grain, pasta, cottage and cream cheese, yogurt, and sour cream. It's easier for mold to penetrate softer food, so it also loves fruits and vegetables like strawberries, cucumbers, peaches, and tomatoes. Jams and jellies are another easy target for mold, as it thrives in sweet and sugary foods. Yikes! Mold isn't always the bad guy ruining your lunch. You gotta thank it for that exquisite taste of blue cheeses, like Gorgonzola, Roquefort, and Blue. Camembert and Brie wouldn't be so delicious without the white mold on their surface. Cheese is 99.99% milk, and its makers grow mold either inside or outside the cheese, depending on its sort. But if you find mold on a cheese that shouldn't have it, like cheddar, Parmesan, or Swiss, it means the molds added to any cheese to give it taste have come into contact with oxygen and started reproducing and breaking down fats and proteins uncontrollably. You should cut off the affected part carefully with a knife without touching the mold. The rest of the cheese is still good to eat. It would be impossible to produce soy sauce without fermenting soybeans, and it happens thanks to a certain type of fungi. Salami fans should appreciate mold for the unique flavor it gives to the meat, and for preventing it from drying out too quickly. Mold has also saved millions of lives. Penicillium mold helped achieve a real breakthrough in medical science, as it naturally produces the well-known penicillin, accidentally discovered by Scottish researcher Alexander Fleming in 1928. Some types of mold can also help you in the garden as a great mulch. Some gardening fans spend years trying to grow leaf mold to use for compost. They believe it improves soil quality. To prevent mold from overtaking your lunch, keep the food covered with plastic wrap in the fridge. Don't keep leftovers of perishable foods in their cans. Put them in airtight containers instead. Keep track of what you store in the fridge. Leftovers shouldn't be there for longer than 3 to 4 days. Keep your fridge clean. Only use fresh and clean dishcloths, towels, sponges, and mops. Once you notice a musty smell, it means mold is about to settle in your kitchen, and its plan is to contaminate your food. But what if mold spreads in the damp areas of your house? You might not notice any consequences for your health immediately, but they might resurface in the long term. As mold grows, its spores and fragments can produce irritants in the air inside your house. Depending on how sensitive you are, you might notice it's becoming hard to breathe. And since mold slowly but surely breaks materials in your house, there will be more dust and other particles in the air. When you try to get rid of the bad mold in your house, you might accidentally touch it without any protection. It won't take your life, but don't let it sit on your hands. First off, clean your hands well with antibacterial soap. Clean between your fingers and the back of each hand thoroughly, and also scrub underneath the nails. If you can't reach some spores, use a toothpick. Then, clean your hands with a strong sanitizer. The final step will be to wash your hands with liquid soap under running water. Again, don't miss the areas between your fingers and under your nails. Don't touch your face until your hands are perfectly clean. You don't want to accidentally inhale those spores. You should also take off the clothes you were wearing when you came into contact with mold and wash it immediately. It's impossible to mold-proof your home, but you can make it resistant to that mean intruder. Inspect your house and find the problem areas. It could be a flood in your basement, a water stain on the ceiling, or a window that's always covered with condensation. Fix those problems and install proper ventilation in the house. AC units and dehumidifiers will help. Open a window while cooking or showering to keep the moisture outside. Make sure your roof gutters are regularly cleaned and fixed. Invest in a moisture meter and monitor the humidity inside. Ideally, it should be between 30 and 60%. Always remove wet clothes from the washing machine unless you want to share your garments with mold. The best you can do is hang them to dry outside in fresh air and wait while they get completely dry before putting them in your wardrobe. Empty and air out drawers and closets you rarely open every now and then. Never leave the bathroom floor and walls wet after you take a shower. And clean your house regularly. Then nasty mold won't have a chance. The moist soil in your houseplants is every mold's dream. To save them, don't overwater them and let fresh air circulate in the room where your plants live. If you see mold is starting to grow on your plants, mix 2 tablespoons of white vinegar and some water in a spray bottle and apply the mix to your plants. You can also do the same thing using a tablespoon of baking soda. There's a common myth that bleach can help you get rid of mold. In reality, it will only help you remove the visible part, but the spores will survive and keep spreading. Depending on what you do for a living, you may also meet mold in your workplace. Poorly ventilated spaces, greenhouses, farms, and even bookstores and libraries are in the risk zone here. Paper contains cellulose, and it's a perfect food source for some types of mold. Old books that have been stored in a humid room for many years could be hiding millions of mold spores. The rules to protect yourself in a workspace are pretty much the same as for your house. Clean it regularly, dry damp surfaces, and if it's impossible, wear protective gloves when you have to come into contact with mold.
Now, this is something to crow about. They might not seem to be the smartest creatures in the world, but some crows actually have brains bigger than yours, in proportion to the rest of their bodies, of course. The New Caledonian crow has a brain that makes up nearly 3% of its total body weight. The proportion is similar to that in dolphins and great apes. An adult human's brain only weighs around 2% of their body weight. I think mine's lower than that. Research has also shown that the crow's forebrains are more packed with neurons than those of primates. This area of the brain defines the intelligence of an animal. So, more neurons means better cognitive reasoning. They could even be the smartest non-humans on the planet and smarter than 7-year-old humans. Scientists offered 6 wild crows a series of tests to see how well they understand causal relationships. The tests were based on Aesop's fable, where a thirsty crow was dropping rocks to raise the water level in a pitcher. The real-life crows had to drop heavy objects into tubes filled with water. The birds were given a choice of objects to drop. They knew they had to choose solid and not hollow objects to drop, and a tube filled with water and not sand. They also opted for the tube with a higher level of water, knowing it would get them to the final goal with less work. All of the birds have successfully solved the puzzle, unlike little humans aged 4 to 6 and faster than 7-year-olds. Another experiment has proved that crows are capable of analogical thinking. The smart birds were given a tray with 3 cups on it. The middle cup had a card on it with a color, a shape, or a number. The side cups also had images on top of them, one the same as on the middle cup and one different from it. There was food inside the cup with a matching picture. Crows quickly figured out how it all worked and started choosing matching cards to get the treat. During the next round of the experiment, they got cards with pairs of items on it. These were pairs of identical items on 2 of the cards, let's say 2 circles and 2 triangles. The remaining 2 cards had diverse images, a circle with a heart and a square with a triangle. So they had to find a match for a card with 2 identical items and 2 different items. The birds instantly figured out the task and picked the right cards each time. No dummies there. Crows thrive on every continent except Antarctica and South America. Crows and their close relatives, ravens, magpies, and jays, have learned not only to survive among humans, but to make use of this relationship. Crows who live in cities in America and Japan, for example, have learned to drop tough nuts onto streets with heavy traffic and wait for the vehicles to crush the nuts for them. Then the birds wait for traffic lights to go green for pedestrians and safely pick up the treats from the ground. In 2011, a team from the University of Washington proved that crows can recognize human faces and remember their enemies. One researcher put on a caveman mask, and another one wore a Dick Cheney mask. The caveman visited 5 sites to catch and ban some wild crows. Once they were released, the birds made some loud, angry caws. They did it to warn their pals there was a bold intruder nearby. The pals would then fly over to punish the Neanderthal with some pretty angry sounds. The experiment's Dick Cheney did pretty much nothing. Scientists would revisit the exact same spots for 5 years, and the birds would always greet the caveman with angry scolds and ignore Dick Cheney. Some of the birds who took part in the original experiment were not even alive anymore, but it looked like they had passed down the knowledge to their young. They can also, somehow, tell if a human presents a direct threat to them or is just minding their own business. Crows take off much sooner when they notice a person moving their way and staring at them. Most birds and other animals prefer to run away when humans are approaching, even when they're just strolling by. Crows feel when it's okay to stay relaxed and when they must escape danger. Family means a lot to crows. They normally find one partner for life and live in pairs or small family groups. In the cold wintertime, they join hundreds and even thousands of their peers to survive the nights in a unit called a roost. During the nesting season, young crows help their parents defend the nest from many intruders. They can also bring food to their parents or directly to their youngest siblings. It's like takeout. Some birds keep helping their parents for several years. Crows also make friends for life and form huge gangs to protect themselves from predators. They swoop in to harass any unwanted aggressive guests and even go after larger birds like owls or hawks or other animals. Sometimes they also get together to steal food from larger creatures. Some members of the group distract the predator's attention while others do the sneaky business. Now, it may all sound like caw, caw to you, but crows have a whole variety of sounds, and each of them means something to others of their kind. They can warn prospective intruders that they're about to enter their territory or let their relatives know their location. That language isn't universal. It varies from valley to valley, pretty much like regional dialects. If a crow decides to join a new flock for some reason, it will have to learn to caw their language by mimicking the sounds of other members of the new flock. Crows have more self-control than many people. If someone offered you a treat you could get right now and another, more delicious one you'd have to wait for, what would you choose? The smarty pants with feathers have proven they know that waiting a bit pays off. Researchers first tested the crow's dietary preferences: bread, grapes, sausage, fried pork fat, and other treats. Each of the birds had their favorites. Then they offered them their least favorite food. After a few seconds to 10 minutes, the researchers offered the birdies a more delicious treat or a bigger portion of the same snack. They had the option to grab whatever they got and fly, but that would mean no hope of getting a better treat. The participating crows chose to wait only for a higher quality snack they'd enjoy more. They didn't want to wait to get the second portion of the same old snack. Only when they got the desired food would the participants leave the testing grounds. Other birds, like pigeons, chickens, and gray parrots, didn't show that kind of patience and self-control during the same experiment. Our heroes of the day never waste food. When they have too much of it, they hide it in caches for later in some secret spots or in leaves or other objects. Once they feel hungry again, they know exactly where to go to find their supplies. Sometimes they also add some markers on the top of the cache to remember where it was or move food from spot to spot to protect it from some other hungry mouths. They also know which food goes bad first and finish meat before other types of meals, like nuts or bread, that stay good for longer. Crows also craft and use their own tools. They've learned to carve thin strips of wood in skewers and bend wires into hooks to pick up food that is out of reach. They remember the design and recreate the same kind of tool. Crows also know how to combine materials that wouldn't work separately to build one complex tool. Only humans and great apes were known to do something like that before. It also looks like crows enjoy the process of making and using a tool. Their behavior changes after successfully using a tool, just like we humans feel happy after finishing a complicated work assignment.